The evening is going well, by any reasonable measure. There are people here, good people you like, people you've known for a while in some cases. The conversation is easy, there's laughter. The kind of night that, described to someone else the next day, would sound like exactly what a social life is supposed to be. And underneath it, somewhere beneath the surface of all of it, there's a quiet. Not boredom, not dissatisfaction with the specific people or the specific evening. More like a gap. A sense that something that should be landing isn't quite landing. That the conversation, however pleasant, is staying in territory that everyone in the room has agreed, without discussing it, is safe. That you could leave this evening and nobody would know anything more about you than they did before you arrived. That feeling, if you know it, is not the result of a failed evening. It is not about these particular people or this particular dynamic. It is the specific texture of modern male loneliness. And the reason most men who experience it have never called it that is because it does not match the word. Loneliness is supposed to look like isolation, like having no one, like a man who sits alone in a room with no calls to make and no one who would notice if he disappeared. That is not what this is. This is something subtler and more common, and in many ways harder to address because it is harder to name. You are not alone. You are surrounded, and you do not feel known. That distinction between being surrounded and being known is what this episode is about. I want to begin by asking you to set aside the word for a moment. Not the feeling, the word. Because the word carries an image that most of the men who need this episode will not recognize themselves in. And if you hear the word and think, that's not me, I have people, I'm not lonely, and stop there, you'll miss something important. The image of loneliness that most of us carry is a specific one. The older person living alone. The socially isolated individual with no friends, no relationships, no network. The dramatic, visible, obvious form. That form exists, and it is serious. But research over the past several decades has established something that challenges the entire framework. The most dangerous and the most common form of loneliness has nothing to do with how many people are around you. It is the subjective experience of not being genuinely known. A man can have a full social life, events on the calendar, people who would describe him as a friend, a relationship, perhaps a family, and still experience daily the particular ache of not being seen at the level that actually matters. The neuroscientist John Cacioppo, who devoted his career to the study of loneliness and died in 2018, was unambiguous about this. Loneliness, he wrote, is not about the number of people in your life. It is about the quality of connection. And the absence of genuine connection, the kind in which another person actually knows you, not the curated version, but the real one, registers in the human body and mind as a serious and chronic threat. And men, in particular, are extraordinarily vulnerable to this form of loneliness. Not because there is something wrong with men, but because the culture that shaped most of us made genuine connection feel like a risk. Social connection is not a preference. This is the finding that sits at the center of Cacioppo's life's work, and it is more radical than it sounds. We tend to think of connection, friendship, intimacy, belonging, as something some people need more than others. A personality variable. An introvert might need less of it, an extrovert more. The man who values his independence might be genuinely fine with less social contact than the man who thrives in groups. This framing misses the point entirely. Cacioppo's research, accumulated over decades, establishes that social connection is a biological necessity, not a preference, a necessity, as fundamental to human health and survival as food, water, and sleep. The evidence is extensive and difficult to argue with. Chronic loneliness, sustained over months and years, elevates cortisol, the primary stress hormone, to levels associated with chronic stress disorders. It suppresses immune function, leaving the body more vulnerable to illness. It disrupts sleep, which cascades into every other system. It increases blood pressure and the risk of cardiovascular disease. One analysis, aggregating data across multiple studies, found that the health impact of chronic loneliness is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And crucially, and this is the part most relevant to the men watching this, the effect is entirely driven by the subjective experience, not by how many friends you have, not by how often you socialize, by whether you feel genuinely connected to the people in your life. A man who sees people every day but does not feel known by any of them experiences the same physiological stress response as a man who sees nobody. The body is not measuring attendance, it is measuring depth. And most men, without knowing it, have been starving on a full social calendar. This is not a conversation about weakness. It is a conversation about what happens when a set of cultural norms, applied consistently over many years, produce a specific and predictable result. Boys are taught, rarely explicitly, usually through the texture of everyday experience, that there is a particular kind of man worth being. He is self-sufficient. He does not need others in any way that could be described as needing. He processes difficulty internally. He is reliable, stable, and solid, not because he has support, but because he has himself. Vulnerability, in this framework, is not merely uncomfortable. It is a threat. It signals weakness. It opens you to exploitation or contempt. The man who admits he struggles, who says he is not fine when he is not, who allows another person to see the interior of his experience, that man has done something that the culture of masculinity quietly but consistently penalizes. The result, over 20 or 30 years of consistent training, is a man who has become genuinely skilled at being around people without being with them. He knows how to be social. He knows how to be entertaining and reliable and good company. He knows how to show up for people in the ways that are socially legible, turning up when things go wrong, being dependable, being fun. What he has never learned is how to be genuinely present, how to let a conversation go somewhere that isn't comfortable, how to say something true rather than something appropriate, how to be in a room with another person and actually be there, rather than the version of himself he has decided is safe to show. The tragic efficiency of this is that a man shaped by these norms doesn't experience it as suppression. He experiences it as who he is. I am someone who doesn't need a lot. I prefer my own company. I'm not one for deep conversations. These are real preferences in some men, but in many men, they are the story the training has told, adopted so thoroughly that it has become identity. And the loneliness produced by living inside that identity is real and physical and cumulative, even if it never gets named.
Let me describe a specific thing that most men in this situation will recognize. The friendship that has been going for years. You like this person, you have history with them. In a crisis, you would call them, or they would call you. By any external measure, this is a real and valued friendship. But if you think about the last 10 conversations you've had, the actual content of them, they have stayed almost entirely in a specific territory. Sport, work, current events, shared experiences from the past, observations about other people, plans, logistics, complaints about the obvious things.
What they have not contained is anything that genuinely costs you. Anything that would require you to be less certain than you usually project. Anything about the interior of your life. What it actually feels like. What you're actually afraid of. What you actually want. Because that territory is implicitly off limits. Not by agreement, by atmosphere. Both of you would be uncomfortable if the conversation went there. And so it doesn't. And you leave each other feeling like friends, because by all the external markers, you are. And the particular ache of not having been seen by this person you've known for a decade sits quietly underneath the evening.
This is the surface friendship, and it is the dominant form of male friendship in most modern contexts. It is not false. The warmth is genuine. The loyalty is genuine. The shared history is real. But it does not deliver what connection actually delivers. Because connection, the kind that registers as genuine in the human nervous system, requires something that the surface friendship systematically avoids. Being known. Not performing, not entertaining, not showing up reliably. Being known. In the full, complex, imperfect, sometimes uncomfortable specificity of who you actually are.
One of the most remarkable documents in ancient philosophy is a collection of letters written by Seneca to his friend Lucilius. Lucilius was younger than Seneca, a procurator in Sicily, someone Seneca had genuine affection and intellectual respect for. The letters span years. They cover philosophy, death, wealth, anger, time, grief, the full range of what it means to be a human being trying to live well. But more than the topics, what is remarkable is the quality of relationship they reveal.
These are not formal letters. They are not performances of philosophy for an external audience. They are the correspondence of two men who are genuinely known to each other, who speak honestly, who share struggle and uncertainty alongside insight, who are in some recognizable sense actually there for each other. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "Recede into thyself as much as you can." But he immediately qualified it. "But receive also those who will make you better, and let those whom you can make better receive you." This is not a contradiction. It is the Stoic understanding of friendship at its most precise. Solitude has genuine value. The Stoics were not social creatures in the performative sense. They valued the interior life and the time to cultivate it.
But genuine friendship, friendship with depth, with honesty, with real mutual knowledge, was for Seneca not a luxury or a preference. It was essential. He wrote explicitly that a life without friendship of this quality was not a fully human life. He also wrote, and this is the part that most modern men are not ready for, that the way to find a friend worth having was to be prepared to be one. that the depth of the relationship you find is largely determined by the depth you are willing to bring. The man who keeps everything at the surface, who is reliable and entertaining and never vulnerable, will have reliable and entertaining friendships. He will not have the kind of friendships Seneca describes, because that kind requires something from him that he has not been willing to give. Something honest, something true, something that costs him a little. Before we get to the practical section, I want to draw one distinction very carefully. Because there is a version of this conversation that goes somewhere wrong. That implies any desire for solitude or independence is a problem. That the solution to loneliness is simply more social contact. That the man who values time alone needs to be fixed. That is not what this episode is saying. Solitude is not loneliness. Solitude is the chosen, intentional experience of being alone. It is restorative for many men, and for some, genuinely necessary. The ability to sit with yourself, to think without interruption, to be in your own presence without distraction, that is a capacity worth developing, not eliminating. The Stoics valued solitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in it. Seneca wrote about its importance. Epictetus taught from it. Loneliness is something entirely different. It is not a choice. It is the absence of genuine connection, felt as absence, experienced as absence, with all the physiological consequences that absence carries. The difference between the two is not the number of people around you. It is the quality of what is available when connection is sought. The man who chooses solitude because he finds it genuinely restorative, who has people in his life with whom he is genuinely known, and who returns to them from his solitude with something to offer, that man is not lonely. The man who calls it solitude because it is easier than the risk of genuine connection, who fills the time alone with distraction rather than the genuine interior life that solitude is supposed to serve, that man may be confusing independence with isolation. The question worth asking, honestly, is which one you are actually in. Not as a judgment, as information. Because the answer determines what the next step is. The first thing I want to say about practice is what it isn't. It isn't going to more social events. It isn't expanding the network. It isn't becoming more open in some performed, generalized way that makes every conversation feel like a therapy session. The movement toward genuine connection is quieter and more specific than that. Here's where it begins. Name what you are actually experiencing. Before anything else, before any change in behavior, simply be honest to yourself about what your social life actually feels like from the inside. Not what it looks like from the outside. Not whether you have enough people or enough plans. Does it feel like genuine connection? Are there people in your life who actually know you, who know what you're afraid of, what you're working through, what matters to you at the level that isn't suitable for casual conversation? If the honest answer is no, or not really, or I'm not sure, that is not a failure. That is information. And it is the only starting point that actually leads somewhere. Choose one person and go slightly deeper. Not dramatically, not with a sudden announcement that you've decided to be more emotionally available. That is not what genuine connection looks like, and it would be as uncomfortable for the other person as for you.
Simply, in your next conversation with someone you genuinely trust, allow one thing to be more real than you would usually make it. Not a confession, not a performance of vulnerability, just one honest thing. Something slightly more specific than you would normally offer. Something that costs you a little. Notice what happens. Usually, when one person in a conversation goes slightly deeper, the other person follows. Not always, but often. Because most men are in the same position, keeping things at the surface not because they want to, but because the first move towards something more real requires someone to go first.
Protect what grows. If that conversation goes somewhere genuine, if something real is exchanged, pay attention to it afterward. Not by making it significant in a way that feels awkward, by continuing to show up, by allowing the next conversation to build on what the last one reached. Genuine friendship of the kind Seneca described is not produced in a single conversation. It is accumulated through consistent honesty over time, through being someone who can be trusted with what is real. That trust is built slowly. It is entirely within your reach, and it begins with a single decision to go slightly deeper than you usually go.
Seneca wrote to Lucilius not once, but for years. The depth of what those letters contain is the product of time and consistency, and the willingness to keep being honest. That is available to you too, in the friendship you already have, with the person you already know. Starting with one conversation that goes a little further than usual.
Come back to where we started. The room full of people. The evening that is, by any external measure, going well. The quiet underneath it, that nothing in the room is quite reaching. I want to name what that quiet actually is. It is not ingratitude. It is not the sign of a difficult personality or impossible standards. It is the specific biological signal of a human need that is not being met. The need to be genuinely known. Cacioppo spent his career establishing in rigorous scientific terms what every person already knows from the inside, that we are not built for performance. We are not built for curated social presence and managed impressions and the surface-level warmth that is all most social contexts actually offer. We are built for genuine contact, for the specific experience of being in the presence of another person who actually sees you, not the version you've decided to show, but the real one, and who does not leave. That experience is not common. It is not guaranteed. It requires something from you that most of the men in this situation have not yet been willing to give. But it is not out of reach.
Seneca found it. Marcus Aurelius found it. In the private pages of the Meditations, if nowhere else. The Stoics built philosophy around it. The idea that a man who knows himself and allows himself to be known builds something that no achievement and no accumulation can produce. Something that feels genuinely like enough. Solitude is a choice. Loneliness is a cost. Know which one you are in.
And if it is loneliness, if the honest answer to that question is that you are paying the cost rather than making the choice, then what comes next is simpler than it might feel right now. One person, one conversation, one true thing. That is how the distance closes.
Here's the one thing worth carrying.
Solitude is a choice. Loneliness is a cost. The man who has confused them, who has told himself that independence means needing no one, that strength means carrying everything alone, that his social life is fine because he has people, even if none of them know him. That man is paying a price in his body, his relationships, and his sense of aliveness. And the way out is not dramatic. It is one honest conversation. One person allowed a little closer. One moment of genuine presence rather than managed surface.
Seneca found it worth writing about for years, because what genuine friendship produces, what being truly known by another person actually feels like, is not something that anything else in a man's life can substitute for. You don't need more people. You need more real. I'll see you in the next one.